30 seconds to 1 minute of the last thoughts from our panelists, and hopefully the leaders of the major parties and minor parties too of this province are listening, because at the end of the day, the leaders should lead by listening to the people. So I'm going to start with Adam over to the far right.
I'm going to keep this very short, but I think there was a message that came out roughly a year and a half ago that was largely missed by a lot of people, but may have been one of the more significant statements I've seen in the last couple of years from the International Energy Agency. And they basically provided a warning that if we don't stop building fossil fuel infrastructure in the next 5 years, we are committing ourselves to 5 degrees of warming and up. We really have very little time to stop locking ourselves into a future of catastrophe. So what that means is the urgency just isn't there. We're having these sort of academic discussions about energy policy, that we can't do this like we have been doing in the past. We actually have to make these decisions based on what we're locking ourselves into for a very long timeline. So I just wanted to leave that with everybody. It's an incredibly important message that everybody should be listening to.
Thanks, Adam. Mark, Winfield, concluding statements.
As I said before, I think we need to take a vastly more adaptive approach to this file and the uncertainties around it. As Adam suggested, that means avoiding locking into technologies that set our path for the next century in this kind of stage of uncertainty. Our focus needs to be on renewables. It needs to be on conservation, not nuclear. And we do need to bring the other elements of the energy picture together, particularly around transportation and buildings.
Thank you, Mark. Adam White.
I don't know if I'm responding to the right question, but I'm reflecting that the incidents of the last 48 hours that culminate the events over the last month or so are really an interesting manifestation of one of the problems we've had in Ontario, which is that the government itself is a large investor, stakeholder, political stakeholder in the electricity sector. The reason that we have a supply overhang is because of political aversion to risk, not because of economics or engineering or any other thing. And when the government finds itself in that situation of needing to represent its own interests and representing the commercial interests of investors in the energy industry as a proxy, it becomes less and less interested in telling difficult truths to citizens. And the polling has always shown this. Even when I was in government in the Harris years, the more people in Ontario knew about electricity, the less they liked it, the less they liked the policy, and it's true now. And so the communications that emanate from government and the agencies are either incomprehensibly, incomprehensible bureaucraties or techno jargon, or they're completely political platitudes that don't really communicate anything of substance. My faith is with the people. If we're going to proliferate as a civilization, we need to live within the natural limits. And if we're going to rely exclusively on renewable energy, as I think we must long term, then we have to live within those limits. So it's not that we need to get rid of fossil this year or next year. I worry about the global climate, but it's hard to imagine how one can do anything about it. But we certainly need to transition ourselves as a species to living within the natural limits of the energy that's out there. And we can, we need to help low-income customers. We need to help all customers because, the only way to reduce the level of tax on the environment is to demand less energy from it. We can get there, but it's, hard to know when you have people who purportedly promoting the public interest so caught up in the commercial interests of the sector that they find it very awkward to be truthful with citizens.
Thank you, Adam. And Marion, Fraser, your concluding comments, please.
Yes, my concluding comment is this. 4 weeks ago, the OPA and the bureaucrats presented 36,000 pages talking about the gas plant closures to the legislative committee, and then they delivered another 20,000 last Friday. So that's 56,000 pages. I wonder how many copies of those pages actually are in existence. So we're talking, whatever. So maybe our next energy source should be energy from waste, because why hasn't anybody said, why in the hell do we need 56,000 pages of anything to make to justify a decision that we know exactly where it was made and when it was made? Come on.
Well, my pleasure is to thank the panelists for a very informative panel. I think we've opened some questions. We provided in the panel a few very good ideas for the future leaders, and that is what universities that are publicly owned are here for. York University, like most universities in this country, are here to serve the public good. Energy should serve the public good, and so should politicians. So with those thoughts, I will ask you to please thank our panelists with your gift of applause, and I bid you adieu.